Hello and welcome to my video 5.4 Subtracting Polynomials. Here you should learn how to subtract different polynomials. We're going to start basic here, and this is based off of the Math Makes Sense 9 textbook. So we're starting pretty basic here. Subtracting this polynomial, well, this is a nice easy monomial, which means it's got only one term and one term. So we've got monomial on top subtracted by monomial on the bottom. So what's happening here is just like if we had 4 minus 2, we would get 2. Here, all we're doing is we're keeping the x squared. So 4 minus 2 is 2, but we keep the x squared. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. All we're doing is the same stuff as adding and simplifying. We're just making sure we're doing term by term. Let's look at this next one and watch carefully. I'm going to do this one first. Now, it becomes a little bit more complicated because what this is like is that we've got 3 minus negative 2, right? And if it's 3 minus negative 2, well, it's actually the same thing as 3 plus 2. So it equals 5. So this is 5x cubed. Okay, so what we did was 2 negatives make a positive. Whoops, sorry. 2 negatives make a positive. So negative negative equals positive. Okay, so every sign inside here basically will flip. So I'll show you in a second what that means, but let's try the next one. So we did degree 3. Well, there's only one degree 2, so that's easy. Let's just write it down. X squared. And let's look for degree 1. Well, we have a positive 2x, and we have a positive x. But it's like this. 2 minus positive x, x meaning that it's just 1. So if there is an invisible 1 here. Okay, so this more simply can be written as 2 minus 1. Right? So positive and a negative turn into a negative. So if once we do that, we get 2 minus 1 is 1. So let's write that down. So we have plus 1x, or we can just write it as x by itself. And lastly, we have our constant term, and there's only one of those, so we go plus 1. Okay, so we can break it up like this, but it might be a lot of work to do all of this extra stuff. So let me show you how else you can look at it. Let's look at this. Oh, let's try to move this, give us a little bit more room. Okay, so let's look at this next polynomial subtraction. And we can see that it's written out slightly differently. So what's happening is basically we have a negative 1 times by that whole thing, right? So what happens is the negative 1 multiplies into our brackets by the distributive property and changes all the signs inside. So I'm going to rewrite this whole thing now to equal the exact same number, but with addition. So negative, so actually, so negative 4x squared minus 2x minus x squared. So what happened is we flipped this sign, we flipped this sign, we flipped this sign, and we flipped this sign. Every sign inside the brackets was multiplied by negative 1 to flip it. And now we can go through one at a time to figure out which is our actual answer. So what's our highest degree? Well, we have degree 2 here, degree 2 here, and degree 2 here. So we've got 1, invisible 1 there, 1, negative 1, minus 4 is negative 5, minus 1 again is negative 6x squared. Looking at the next highest degree, we have this invisible degree of 1 here and an invisible degree of 1 here. So we have 4x minus 2x equals positive 2x. So 4 minus 2 equals 2. All right. So all we're doing is we're multiplying that negative into the brackets. Or you're subtracting by the number. So if you want to think about it differently, 4x minus, so this 4x here, let's use a different color. This 4x subtracted by 2x, right? Because there's a subtraction sign here. So 4x subtract 2x. All right. 2 more example questions here. Okay, we have a big long one here, so let's try this one out. We have our highest degree is 3 here, and we have an invisible 1. Our next is this. This is our other degree 3. So we have 1x minus, so always use this, minus a positive 6x. Okay? Or you can multiply it into the brackets. Okay, so there's like invisible brackets here. Okay, so let's do that. 1 minus positive 6. Well, it's going to be negative 5x. And let's do the next highest degree. We've got degree of 2 there, degree of 2 there, and degree of 2 there. So we've got 4 minus 2 at the top, so that gives us 2. So remember that we have 2 minus a negative 1. There's an invisible 1 here. So minus negative 1, like adding 1. So 2 plus 1 equals 3. So 3x squared. Now, looking for, we have just one x term, and so you have to remember this negative here. So negative, so it's like subtracting 1 from 0. So we have negative 1x, or better yet is if you write it like this, just negative x. All right, lastly we have minus 1, or negative 1 minus negative 3. So we have negative 1 plus 3, because we're basically, it ends up, if we want, we can just flip these two. So if you do that, flip those two, whoops. If we flip those two, it's like negative 1 plus 3. So that's plus 2 equals plus 2, and that's our answer. Okay, in this last one, I'm going to show you the flipping of the sign method so that you can actually see that. So if you want to pause now that you've seen me do this one, that's a good idea. Pause and try this one. All right, we're going to try it out right now. Hopefully you've tried it, and you're going to check your answer with mine. Okay, so first of all, I have these different degrees of 3, which is good. Okay, but if this sign flips to a positive, I want to flip this sign to a negative. And let's go through all of these. This one I'll flip to a positive. This one I'll flip to a negative. This one I'll flip to a negative. Okay, and now that we've flipped all of those different signs, this sign, this sign, this sign, this sign, and this sign, now that we've flipped all those, it's the exact same as 5.3, adding polynomials. So if you want, you can look at that if that's challenging for you. But now that we've done that, well, now we can just add. So 4 plus 2 is 8x cubed. And then we have negative 3, and we have a positive 3, which will equal 0, so we don't actually even have to write it. Then we have negative 3x, and then we have 1 minus 1, which also goes to 0. So maybe I'll write that here. So 3 plus 3 equals 0. 1 minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so hopefully this video helped you, and now you have some understanding of subtracting polynomials. Good luck!